As we look at the discoveries of archaeology, we see confirmation of the text of Scripture. And with every proof supporting the content of Scripture, we're seeing evidence of the claims that the author of the Holy Bible is the infallible God of the Bible. And as we compile this evidence, every man or woman considering the claims of the Bible is seated in the jury. It's up to us to weigh the evidence and answer the question, what is the best explanation for the evidence? Now, when we begin reading through the Bible, we consider Creation Week, and we look at the history of the world and see that it is nearly unanimous among scholars and researchers of all types that recorded human history only goes back to around 3000 to 3500 BC. That takes us back to the time of Noah's flood. Now, if you do your own research, be careful to note the exact words I'm using. Most scholars and researchers in print are hostile toward the Bible, so they have to admit that human beings only began recording history in various forms in writing about 5,000 years ago. But these people insist that humans had evolved from ape-like ancestors over millions of years, and that humanoids and then humans existed for hundreds of thousands of years during a time referred to by them as prehistory. It's called prehistory because it was supposed to have happened before recorded history. So if it wasn't recorded, then how do these scholars and researchers know it happened? They don't. They just make stuff up. You'll hear them describe the prehistory period with references to carbon dating, which is proven to be a faulty method of dating materials. As much as they deflect and try to downplay the realities of the failures of carbon dating, the fact remains that no carbon date of any material is provably true. If you want to see a clear example of this, go look up the accounts of the discovery of the remains of a man who was labeled Cheddar Man. The skeletal remains of this Cheddar Man was found in a cave near a place called Cheddar, Somerset, England. The original reports in 1903 claimed that carbon dating showed the Cheddar Man being 40 to 80,000 years old. But after 7 decades of tourists being drawn to the area, while history books and school curriculum and textbooks repeatedly made that false claim that Cheddar Man was 40 to 80,000 years old, well, in the 1970s, new testing and other discoveries forced the correction, and now it is claimed that Cheddar Man dates to about 10,000 years ago. And there's no reason to believe that additional testing and discoveries won't eventually place Cheddar Man at a time shortly after Noah's flood, just as the Bible would say we should expect. You really ought to watch a video titled Why Evolutionary Dating Methods Are a Complete Lie. It's put out by Answers in Genesis Canada on their social media pages. But the bottom line is, the real evidence shows us that about the time that the Bible tells us there was a global flood, we call it Noah's flood, just happens to be the point in which recorded human history begins, just like we'd expect by reading our Bible. Biblically, we know that there was about a 1,500-year period between the fall of Adam and the flood of Noah, and that everything that existed during that short time before the flood was totally destroyed in the global flood of Noah. So it only makes sense that when we find recorded history, it would date back to the time of the flood. Everything before that had been destroyed. So it's as the Lord asked in Job 38:4, "Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding." The answer is they weren't there. And there's no evidence left from that because the flood destroyed everything before it. And these scholars and researchers were not there, but God was. And God has told us what happened in His book, the Holy Bible, King James Version in English.